Okay, so here's the parts I've got for the HST shaft, or the propeller shaft as they call it. So this thing right here is what comes off the okay, so what do we got here? This shaft is the propeller shaft. It's about 2 foot long. Yeah, it's about 2 foot long. 27 inches. What I found after I disassembled this, the plate that mounted to the back of the engine, this CV joint, this is a constant velocity joint, was bone dry. And I don't know if you can see it in there, but there's a little speck right about there. I'm gonna move my finger, try to get the light in. That's where the ball bearing wore away. The ball bearing wore that away and was wearing it out. And we got 4 of those the whole way around. The boot, you want to put the snap ring. You want to put this big flat washer. Then you're going to put this. You're going to put that. And I'm going to put this clip on. Once I do all that, I'm going to put the shaft down into the tractor and put it through the frame so it can go out to where the engine is. Folks, I'm sorry, I refer to engines as motors. I know the difference. Motors are electric, engines are internal combustion, and I apologize for intermixing them, but I do run motor oil in my engine, and it has motor mounts. So if I call it a motor, I apologize. But what I got is I got new parts for this. So let me grab, is because it had that wear inside there like I showed you, I went and bought a new one of these. And this was a little bit of an expensive part. Of course, everything's expensive to me, but that's just the way, you know, I am. There's the part number. And I got these from Messick's. This is called the front coupler. Okay. The inner ball coupling. And that's the part that goes over the shaft and gets clipped on. And I have new ball bearings. I did not replace the rear ones. The rear ones were in good shape when they came out. I didn't see any wear in there. It wasn't dry. It wasn't great, but it wasn't dry. And so this is what I'm going to do. I reusing the same spring. I bought new C-clips, or whatever these things are called. So I'm going to get all the parts that I need together here, and then put it in the car, into the tractor, and then I'll be back to talk about what I experienced. And also I'm going to find out which direction this goes. It looks to me like this is about 3/4 of an inch long, and as you can see, it's not quite centered. So one end is a little further. The hole is offset to either the front or the back, and I gotta find out. So here we are, I'm back. Did a few things. So let's talk about what I did. So when what I did to put the shaft in, one thing that I didn't do when I took this apart was look to see how these balls lined up, where the ball bearings lined up. Are they in line with each other or not? So what I did is put a mark on my shaft, this yellow mark, and I put one on the opposing end, the opposite end, and use this hole as a reference. So each one is to this side of the shaft. Now how you line it up, it's up to you. I don't even know if this is correct. I'm just assuming it is, that you want the balls lined up on each end. Hopefully that's correct. If not, somebody leave me a comment in the comments if you know differently. I'd appreciate the feedback. I didn't know, and I didn't think about marking the shaft or taking note of how the balls lined up before I removed the clip here and removed this inner ball collar. So what I did, boot, snap ring, flat washer, the ball bearing carrier, whatever it's called, and then put it in the vise and installed the seat clip. It's pretty tight, but it only took me about 15 seconds, maybe 30 seconds each to put them in. I used a pair of vice grips. I held the one end in the slot, grabbed the other end with the vice grips, or not vice grips, needle nose pliers, and then just kind of stretched it out, down, and then got it to go in the ring. Once I got the second end in there, just used a little bit of pressure with my thumbs and was able to get the snap ring to seat in the groove on the end of the shaft. Then I just carefully, with this on the other end, this all on the other end, and here, I fed it through. Then I got under the tractor. I put grease in each of the holes. Also, I put the hole for the ball bearings to the back. I looked at the illustrated parts diagram, and it appears to me that the ball bearing goes closest to the center of the shaft, and that makes sense because when that coupler rides on there, you want to be able to have that ball ride inside the housing as far as possible, and this configuration will allow that ball to travel into grooves. So what I did is I put grease in each one of the ball bearing holes. Then I took the little O-rings that I got from the Kubota dealer. So with the grease in the holes, then I put the O-ring, and then I put the ball bearing in there, and the grease was able to hold the ball bearing in. Then I took and filled the so this is the one that I've removed. So then I took and filled the new one with grease in each one of these grooves that the ball bearings ride in. I put grease in the bottom of the cup, and then there's a spring. There's a spring that goes in there, and that allows the shaft to compress. And so this spring in here allows the shaft to compress and the CV joint to go in and out of the shaft. So once I put the grease in there, I put the spring in, and I carefully put this up to the shaft and did the bottom ones first. I got these slots to line up with the ball bearings and was able to put this up over it. Once I got it up over the ball bearings, I never left off the pressure on it. Then I grabbed the other end of the shaft, pushed the shaft into it, and slid the flat washer in, and then just left it hang there, supported it on the frame of the tractor. Then I crawled, using my snap ring pliers, I was able to put the snap ring, there should be a snap ring. Oh no, it's on the shaft. Both of the snap rings are on the shaft. and then put the snap ring in the groove that's here for it. And that was that. It wasn't very hard. Then slid the boot over top, slid the CV joint dust cover over it. And so one of the things I've been doing when I took this engine apart is I got some sandwich bags and I put my hardware in there. You know, if I could, I put the hardware right back where it came off of. But in some situations, here are 2 bolts that hold something on there. I'm not quite sure what that holds on, but when I get to it, I'll remember. And you know, situations like that, hey, I might not have remembered where it went. So I just put it back in where it is. But in other situations, I did like here, motor mount and radiator mount. So these were bolts that held the motor and the radiator on. Here I got a bag full of HST parts. 2 of these bolts are for holding the fan on. 3 of them are to hold the HST to the back of the crankshaft. And the other one goes, so 2 bolts go in here, 1 on each side. 1 bolt goes in there. And the other 3, they go into the coupler that holds it to the crankshaft. So get yourself some sandwich bags. There's a PTO return spring. So that has something to do with the power takeoff shaft. So what that was is that was back here on this side, this linkage here, and this spring pulls the when you lift and lower the PTO, that thing there is what raises the mower deck. So this spring makes sure that the thing goes down. And then I got other parts here. I know what they're for. They're for my light bar. ROPS bolts. Okay, so there's the washers and nuts for the ROPS, rollover protection system. Here's the bolts for the operator deck. And here's some springs and clips for the holding the seat in place. So take your parts. You might use a couple of bags, but you know, you'll know where your parts go and it'll help remind you. Here's the front support frame. I'll show you that in a bit. So, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put the 3 bolts in that hold the shaft to the back of the engine.